ഫണ്ടമെൻ്റൽ ആയിട്ടുള്ള കാര്യങ്ങളാണ് നോക്കുന്നത്. സോ method of collection of data. We have two type of data. One is primary data and another is secondary data. So what is primary data? Suppose you are conducting an experiment in a physics lab or chemistry lab, or in a suppose you are collecting data from individuals. So we are directly going to the individuals and we will ask some questions, or we will share some questionnaire and collect the data. So that method is usually called primary data. Okay, the collection of primary data. Okay, so so what will be secondary data? Secondary data will be the data collected by some other individuals. For example, data available in the websites. Okay, in the government website or Reserve Bank website or NSSO website. So there are plenty of data available. So that data may be the data collected by some other personnel, and it is deposited in a website or in a government department or whatever be the institution. Okay, so that type of data are usually called secondary data. Okay, so there are two types of data. One is primary data and second one is secondary data. Primary data is collecting by directly asking questions, or making an interview, or observing. For example, suppose you want to get the data of water level of a dam. So what we have to do, you have to go to the dam and observe what is the level today, tomorrow, day after tomorrow, etc. Okay, so that is an observation method, and so we have to use any statistical tools for collecting the primary data. But at the same time, for the secondary data, you can collect the secondary data from the available websites or available records of government departments, or records of college, or records of any institution. Okay, so we have primary data and secondary data. So how can we collect the primary data? So these are some usual methods adopted for collecting the primary data. Okay, you can see this, I think. First one is observation method, second is interview method, third is questionnaire, and through schedules, and other methods include warrant cards, distributor audits, pantry audits, consumer panels. So these are examples. So mainly we are using questionnaire or observation or interview. Okay, so that are the method of collecting primary data. Okay, so in observation, what we are doing, we shall observe some reality, and we will record what we are observed. Okay, so that is involved in the observation method. You can read all these materials so that you can get more idea. Okay, I am not reading all these things, just noting the point. Another is interview method. That include personal interview. The context of personal interview. Okay, and another is there are structured interview, group interviews will be there, and I'm not reading all these things. You can, if you are interested, you can read all these things. Okay, if you read all this matter, you will get more idea. Okay, telephonic interview is there. Another is this is most popular method, questionnaire method. Okay, I will show you one questionnaire, and so that you can understand the questions, or what type of questions are involved in collecting data. This is a questionnaire. This is a PhD thesis questionnaire. Before conducting a research scholar have framed a questionnaire according to his or her objective, and the questionnaire contains this type of questions. We can see some questions like, do you have access to computer? This study is the title of this study is banking habits of people of Kerala. Okay, so to study on that topic, she has prepared this questionnaire. So in this questionnaire you can see, we can share this questionnaire to the individuals and collect the data. So that type of data are called primary data. First question is, do you have access to computer? Yes or no. Do you have access to internet? Yes or no. Do you have a mobile phone? Yes or no. Okay, with how many banks do you have accounts? This is another example. Please name your banks you regularly dealing with. What type of accounts do you have? Savings account, current account, recurring deposit, fixed deposit, loans taken. Then what are the factors considered by you when selecting bank? How frequently you visit your bank? What are the reasons for bank visit? Etc. So many questions you can see. I will share this questionnaire with you, no problem. Okay, in the WhatsApp group, so that you can you can refer this for getting idea on questionnaire. Okay, you can refer this for getting the ideas on questionnaire. I will share in the WhatsApp. Okay, so that is another method, questionnaire method. Okay, so so what are the important points to remember for designing a good questionnaire? These are the important points. There is a low cost even when universe is large and widely spread geographically. It is free from bias of the interviewer. We should avoid as far as possible the bias. Answers are respondents' own words. Respondents have adequate time to give well thought out answers. Respondents who are easily approachable can also be reached conveniently. The large samples can be made use, and thus the results can be made more dependable and reliable. So these are some points. These are some merits of questionnaires, and at the same time there are demerits on preparing questionnaire. You can read, no problem. Yeah, this is general format of a questionnaire. You can read yes or no type, inviting free response, as we seen in the questionnaire. Okay, you can see the options are given here. Yes or no questions will be there. So ideas are given there. Structured questionnaires are simple to administer and relatively inexpensive to analyze. Question sequence. First of all, we have to collect the basic informations, and then we have to collect the what is that? Before going to the I will show you the questionnaire. You know that these are some basic informations, and then there are some other questions, satisfaction, related to satisfaction. So this question should be after the basic question. Okay, this type of questions should be, these are very important questions. At the same time, it should be incorporate after asking basic questions. Okay, so these are some 5-point skill questions. Attitude towards technology: strongly agree, agree, no opinion, disagree, strongly agree, Since innovations and technology exist, we better use them. You can strongly agree or agree, put no opinion, disagree, strongly agree. So these are questions the respondent has to think about the question. So we should we should ask these questions after asking basic questions. Okay. So because the respondent has to think a lot. Okay. And you can ask the personal information. This can be included in the questionnaire at the beginning or at the end, no problem. Okay, this is some other general basic: age, sex, education, occupation, marital status, place of residence, etc. In this questionnaire it is included at the end. You can include this information at the beginning also. Okay. These are schedules. Okay, these are some schedules. This method of data collection is very much like the collection of data through questionnaire. The little difference which lies in the fact that the schedules pro forma containing a set of questions are being filled in by the enumerators who are specially appointed for the purpose. Okay, so some questions will be answered by the enumerators. Okay, who are actually enumerators? The individuals entrusted to collect the data. In the census, you can see that the government officials will come to your home and collect the information, and they will also fill some questions by asking. Okay, so that is involved in the schedules. Okay. The enumerators along with the schedules go to the respondents, put to them the questions from the performer in order the questions are listed, and record the replies in the space mean for the same in the performer. So they will fill the performer by asking the question to the respondent. In certain situations, schedules may be handed over to the respondents, and enumerators may help them in according to their answers to various questions in the said schedules. Enumerators explain the aims and objectives of the investigation and also remove the difficulties which any respondent may feel in understanding the implications of a particular question or the definition of or the concept of different difficult types. Okay. So what is the difference between questionnaires and schedules? Both questionnaires and schedule are properly used method for collecting data in research surveys. There is a much resemblance in the nature of these two methods, and this fact has made many people to remark that from a practical point of view, the two methods can be taken to be same. But from the technical point of view, there is a difference between two. The important points of difference are: the question is generally sent through mail to informants to be answered as specified in a covering letter, but otherwise without further assistance from the sender. Or otherwise we will give the hard copy of the questionnaire and we will ask fill and submit back to me after 2 days. So that is the method we are using in filling questionnaire. But the schedule is generally filled by the research worker or the enumerator who can interpret question. Okay. For example, when we conduct the census, so there will be old age persons in a home. So suppose we want to record the age of a grandfather or a grandmother. Suppose she or he don't know the age. We have to ask him, what is that? At what time do you remember at what time you born? Then the respondent may reply that I was born during the independence year, that is 1947. So we can record his year will be 1947. And you can ask the another question that do you remember at what time you born from your parents? So the respondent may reply that my parent has told to me that I was born during the Christmas Eve. So we can assume that he would have born at December. Okay, at any date of the December of that 1947. Okay, and by this method you can locate at least even though this is not exactly correct, you can record his year and month at least, and you can put a date if required. Okay, so that is a so that job has to be done by the enumerator. Okay, then only we will get the age of the grandfather or grandmother in a particular home. Okay, so that is a role conducted by enumerator. Now to collect the data through questionnaire is relatively cheap and economical, since we have to spend money only in preparing the questionnaire and in mailing the same to the respondents. Here no field staff is required. Okay, to collect the data through schedules is relatively more expensive because we have to send the enumerator. Okay, since considerable amount of money has to be spent in appointing enumerators and in importing, training them. I think I remember that I was a master trainer in the last census. I am not remembering the exact date and year. At the same time, I remember that I was a master trainer. We have given the training to the school teachers, government officials, and clerk. That means we have given the training to the enumerators. And after the 2 days training, we will send the enumerators to the homes. Okay. So that means I told these things because in a collection of data through schedules we have to spend a lot of time and money. Okay, so money is also spent in preparing schedules. This non-response is usually high in the case of questionnaire. Suppose we have sent a questionnaire, so we will get the we will get the filled questionnaire, or we may not get the filled questionnaire, depends upon the respondent's interest. Okay, and bias due to non-response often remains indeterminate, so there will be bias. Okay, but in the case of schedules, the enumerators going to the particular house and they are collecting the data, so there is a less chance of leaving the columns or leaving the cells. Okay, in the case of questionnaire, it is not always clear as to who replies, because we are sending a questionnaire or we are sharing the questionnaire, and it can be filled by the correct person, or it can be filled by a son of the person we have located, or a friend of that particular person. So that can be happen. So no, it is not clear who replies, because we are sending mail or we are sharing the questionnaire and we are waiting for the answer. But at the same time, in the case of schedule, we are asking the questions to grandfather, grandmother, father, mother, son, etc. Whatever be the persons are in the particular home or particular house, we are asking the questions to that person. Okay, so we will get the we will get the exact data. Okay, the questionnaire method is likely to be very slow, since many respondents do not return the questionnaire in time to despite several reminders. But in the case of schedules, the information is collected well in time as they filled by the enumerators. Okay. So you can read all these questionnaire method can be used only when the responses are literate, cooperative. But in the case of schedules, the information can be gathered even when the responses happen to be illiterate. So in the case of census, the enumerator going to a particular house and asking the questions. So the illiterate person can respond to the questions. Okay. Wider and more responsive distribution of sample is possible under the questionnaire method, but in respect of the schedules, there are usually remain the difficulty in sending enumerators over the relative wider area. So, so that is a problem. For example, in Idukki or in Wayanad, the what is that agricultural area is there, hilly areas there, and in Kutanad there is a paddy field, large areas there. So when an enumerator start the census operation, census data collection, he may have to move from one home to another home, and the distance between two homes may be in kilometers. So that that usually happens. So that make problem to the enumerators in the case of collecting data through schedules. Okay, this is happening in Wayanad district and Idukki district and Kasaragod district in hilly areas. Okay, but in Thrissur it is very easy, but at the same time in hilly areas or paddy areas it is very difficult. Moreover, out of Kerala, you know, in Kerala and Tamil Nadu and Karnataka, you can see the houses are very close to each other. At the same time, in other states, you can see while you going through train, you can see that after a house, you can see another house after a long distance. Okay, so that make problems on conducting the survey using schedules. Okay. Risk of collecting incomplete and wrong information is relatively more under the questionnaire method, particularly when people are unable to understand questions properly. Okay, if we explain the data, explain the questions, then the respondent can easily understand the aim of the question and put the correct answer. And if we are sending the questionnaire, so the respondent may not be able to understand the questions correctly, properly. Okay, so that will make the wrong answer. Okay, he will put the wrong answer and that will make the problem in the questionnaire itself. Okay, data itself. So another is the success of questionnaire method is lies more on quality of question itself, but the case of
Sir, screen visible.
അല്ലേ സ്ക്രീൻ വിസിബിൾ അല്ല
സ്ക്രീന് കാണുന്നില്ല. അല്ല അല്ല.
അയ്യോ അത് കാണുന്നുണ്ടല്ലോ, അല്ലാതെ എങ്ങനെ കേൾക്കുന്നത് നിങ്ങൾ? അത് പോയിട്ടുണ്ടാവും അല്ലേ? ഇത്ര നേരം കണ്ടിട്ടുണ്ടായിരുന്നില്ല അപ്പോൾ?
സാർ ലെഫ്റ്റ് അടിച്ച് പിന്നെ കണ്ടിട്ടില്ല.
ഞാൻ ലെഫ്റ്റ് അടിച്ചില്ലല്ലോ. ഒരു മിനിറ്റ്. ഹലോ, കയ്യിൽ വെച്ച് ഞങ്ങൾ വരാം കേട്ടോ. കഴിയുമ്പോൾ തന്നാൽ മതി. ഒരു ഫോം ഫില്ല് ചെയ്യാനുണ്ട്. ശരി. ഇപ്പൊ കാണുന്നുണ്ടോ? അപ്പൊ നേരത്തെ നെറ്റ് പോയതുകൊണ്ട് ചില തന്നെ പോയത് ഞാൻ അറിഞ്ഞിട്ടുണ്ടായില്ല കേട്ടോ. കേട്ടില്ല, എന്തായാലും പറയുന്നത് കേട്ടില്ലേ?
കേട്ടു.
അപ്പൊ കുഴപ്പമില്ല. അപ്പൊ ഞാനിത് ഷെയർ ചെയ്യുകയും ചെയ്യാം. എന്തായാലും ഞാൻ റെക്കോർഡ് ചെയ്യുന്നുണ്ട്, അത് ഞാൻ ഷെയർ ചെയ്യാം. അപ്പൊ ഒന്നുകൂടി നിങ്ങൾ കാണുമ്പോൾ ക്ലിയർ ആവും കേട്ടോ. ഓക്കെ. അതാ നെറ്റ് പോകുമ്പോൾ ഇതായി പോകുന്നതാണോ, തന്നെ ഓഫായി പോകുന്നതാണ്? So you can read all these things. I'm not elaborating much because that is only a fundamental information, but you have to understand the information. Okay, and now let us discuss concept of statistical population and sample from a population. Okay, you know what is the population, statistical population. What is population? Population എന്ന് പറഞ്ഞാൽ എന്താണ്? എന്താണ് സാമ്പിൾ? സാമ്പിൾ എന്താണ്? പോപ്പുലേഷൻ എന്താണ്? പോപ്പുലേഷൻ എന്താണ്? സാമ്പിൾ എന്താണ്? പേജ് നമ്പർ 55. ക്ലാസ്സിൽ പഠിച്ചിട്ടില്ലേ? പരീക്ഷ ഒക്കെ ഉള്ള എന്നാണ് പരീക്ഷ വെക്കുക? എന്താണ് പോപ്പുലേഷൻ? Population and sample. So this chapter we can refer this chapter. All items in a field of inquiry constitute a universe or population. All items. For example, suppose we are considering the persons living in Kerala. So what will be the population? All the living people in Kerala is what is that? Included in the Kerala population. So what will be population? Thrissur population, Thrissur. All the individuals living in the Thrissur district will be considered as population. Another population example is BSc Mathematics B batch students. So what will be the population? There will be 48 students in the B batch, and the students constitute the population. Or another example is height of the students Mathematics B batch. So that the record of that height will be a population. Okay, all the individuals. So the height of all individuals are recorded in a particular record book. Then that record will be considered as a population of height. Okay, population എന്ന് പറയുമ്പം വ്യക്തികൾ മാത്രമല്ല, ഡാറ്റകളും ആകും. Okay. So a complete enumeration of all items in the population is known as census inquiry. So complete enumeration. We will collect each and every information of that population. That is called a census. That is why we are calling the what is it? All India census as a, what is it? We are calling it as a census. And so what will be the sample? Sample is the representative part of the population. So sample may contain small number of observations. For example, suppose we are collecting a sample of size 10 of mark in statistics of mathematics B batch students. So I will collect only 10 or 10 or 15 or 20 number of observations from your class. So that will constitute a sample. So sample is actually a representative part of the population. Okay, we will collect only only representations. Okay. Another example is suppose we are collecting the suppose we are collecting the data according to this questionnaire. We can consider this is all Kerala study. This is all Kerala study. We can collect some 50 observations from Kasaragod district, and some 45 observations from Kannur district, some 56 observations from Wayanad district, etc., up to Trivandrum district. So that will constitute a sample of the entire population. Okay. So sample is actually the representative part of the respondent select should be representative total population as possible in order to produce a miniature cross section. The select respondent constitute what is technique called a sample. Okay, and the selection process is called a sampling technique. Okay, this survey is usually called sample survey. Okay. So if there are capital N number of individuals in the population, so we can select a small n number of individuals for the study. Okay. So for example, in a all Kerala study, you can collect some 300 data or 500 data or 1000 data, etc. Okay, out of huge number of data available in the population. So that is the difference between population and sample. Statistical population and sample. You can read this chapter and get more information regarding population and sample. Okay, sampling unit. There are plenty of wonderful, useful information is here. Okay, you can read, at least you can read. You need not to write all these things. Just write the definition only. You have to write the definition and important points from this paragraph only, and from this on you can read this information so that you will get more idea. That is the aim of reading this chapter. You get more idea. You should not restrict to just definition only, but you should read. Then only you will be able to understand the concepts, and you will be able to do all the problems, and you will be able to become a good statistical enumerator. Okay, at least in future. Sometimes you will get job in statistical department, for example in Ministry of Statistics and Planning Implementation, or in Department of Economics and Statistics, or in statistical departments of what is that, central government, state government, Reserve Bank of India, etc. So at that time you have to know all this fundamental information. So you may read this chapter. This is a very good chapter, and I will share to you soon after this class. You can refer this book for getting more information. Okay. So let us stop today.